Hey guys, welcome to the next edition of Carrots and Cake Instagram Live. And I have I don't know why the color is going back and forth, 4 awesome questions to answer for you guys. And these questions are ones that I've got throughout this week and last week, and they're kind of common themes. So I'm just gonna group them together and answer these 4 main topics. So just to summarize, I'm going to talk about the Everly Well food sensitivities test and the LEAP food sensitivities test. I've done both, and there are pros and cons of each, and I will talk about those. The second question was regarding Quinn's surgery when he had his tonsils and adenoids out. I've gotten a few questions about that, so I'll chat about that. And then caffeine. So I've got a few questions, if I've seen changes since giving up caffeine, if I'm drinking caffeine, what's the deal with drinking decaf every day? So I will reply to that. And then a question about the Berkey. So I'll just answer that real quick if you guys are interested in water filtration. So the first question is about the Everly Well test and the LEAP test. And so I've done both. And like I said, there are pros and cons. The first is price. I mean, Everly Well, super affordable. I believe it's less than $200. And then if you go through a Carrots and Cake link, you can save 10%. So pretty affordable when it comes to that type of testing. The LEAP, I want to say, was like in the $400 to $500 range. It could even have been more. And I have done tests that are seriously like $700, $800 in the food sensitivity category. So I don't know. I'm partial to the Everly Well, just like what it provides you. And then also just the convenience of it. Like the whole kit comes to your house. You just do a finger prick, and then you do blood droplets on a little piece of cardboard, and you send it off to the lab. The LEAP, you actually have to have a blood draw by a nurse. And I mean, that's fine. I mean, you can make it happen. I went to like a urgent care type thing, or you could go to a Quest or something like that, but you have a nurse draw your blood, you send off the blood to the lab, and then get your results. And then as far as the results go, they are so fast for Everly Well. Like honestly, probably 5 business days, and they like give you little text updates, just to let you know where your sample is and if it arrived at the lab and if it's being processed and all of that, and lets you know as soon as it's ready. So I like that. LEAP definitely takes longer. I would say it was probably 2 to 3 weeks, and the results actually don't go to you. It goes to the practitioner that you're working with, and that's another important thing to let you know about. With the Everly Well, you just order online, comes to your house. With the LEAP, you have to work with a functional practitioner, a registered dietitian, a doctor, somebody like that would order that test for you. So you do have to go through somebody to get it. But the benefits of that is that they can explain the results to you, they can give you tips, they can give you advice, they can answer your questions, all that good stuff. Everly Well, you're kind of on your own. Like the Everly Well site really does a good job explaining your results and has all sorts of articles and information and everything like that, but you are on your own as far as like an elimination diet goes or reintroducing foods or things like that. The LEAP has it all laid out for you. So you get, your food sensitivities, and they have red, yellow, green. So red is what you're super sensitive to. Yellow are things that you should probably avoid most of the time, and green are your okay foods. And then it's all laid out for you, first week or first phase, these are the foods that you should eat. Second phase, these are the ones that you reintroduce, and third, fourth phase. And you systematically introduce those, and you're working with a practitioner the whole entire time. So I think it really does help you. And I feel like if you're kind of a newbie to all this stuff, or really are having a million food sensitivities, this would be a great way to do it. If you're somebody that's like, some things are not agreeing with me and I could have some issues, and you're pretty self-sufficient, I think Everly Well would be totally fine. I think it would be great as a starting point. And it gave me the same amount of foods. It's not like it, only did like a few or something like that. It did the same high level, medium level, low level. And again, food sensitivity tests, if you talk to registered dietitians, doctors, yada, yada, they're not super accurate because it just kind of depends on what your system's doing at the time and what foods you ate. But I really do think they're a good starting point. And I mean, both tests nailed foods that I definitely have issues to. And the ones that were in that middle category, it was like, sometimes maybe I had issues, sometimes I didn't. And there's definitely some surprises. But I think as a starting point of just, doing that elimination diet on your own, I think it's a great place to start, because ultimately the elimination diet is going to tell you so much about what works and what doesn't. I mean, it's all a body experiment at the end of the day. So that's that's the gist of the two tests. I mean, if you have specific questions, definitely reach out. I think they're both for great reasons. I think if you're, it's hard to say. Like, I think if you're somebody who's like dealing with like autoimmune stuff and like you've had some like chronic issues for a while, the LEAP might be good just because you're working with a practitioner that could really help you on the nutritional front and maybe offer some supplements that might help you or things like that. If you just are having like some wonky stuff going on, maybe the Everly Well would be a good place to go. So it's hard to say. I think they're both great for different reasons, but so that's a little summary there. And then it's also like 89 degrees in here. It really was like 89 degrees. I'm taking off the shirt. I was in a restaurant. It was nice and cool. So second question was about Quinn's tonsils and adenoid surgery. And there's a couple blog posts on Carrots and Cake if you want like the full history about that. But when Quinn was born, he did have some like sleeping issues, like sleep apnea, like that type of stuff. And he had 1 million ear infections. I think he had like 20 ear infections in like the first year of his life. So we were dealing with that. And then he was a late talker. So we had a lot of communication issues and tantrums and things like that. So when he was 20 months, I cannot talk, I apologize. I feel like I'm really thirsty right now. Intermission. So when he was 20 months, he had his tonsils and adenoids out at Children's Hospital in Boston, and everything went great. It was, surgery went well. Everything was awesome. He had tubes put in his ears, and he was so much better. Even like the next day, we could just notice like a difference in his personality. He was definitely happier. He was sleeping better for sure. I remember before the surgery, we could always hear him like snoring on the monitor, and then after the surgery, we couldn't hear him on the baby monitor anymore. So he was definitely sleeping better after the surgery. And then at 22 months, we put him in early intervention because the tantrums and the communication was just, it was crazy. It was just tantrums from when he woke up to when he went to bed because he just couldn't communicate with us. He really didn't have very many words at that point. I would say even at his second birthday, he probably only had a dozen words. So put him in early intervention. He did amazingly. By his, third birthday when he graduated, he was talking up a storm. So I think the surgery definitely helped. The tubes definitely helped. And then just time, like it just, he was just kind of a late talker. I mean, happens with boys sometimes. He was very physical, but like the talking came a little bit later. And now he's 4, and my gosh, he just busts out new words all the time. He's talking nonstop. So I think the woman who asked me, she was just nervous about it. And yeah, I was totally nervous going into the hospital, and thank God I had Mal there with me. But everything was fine. It was a pretty short surgery, and the doctor came out right away and just let us know everything was fine. So I think in the long run, it's definitely worth it. And I mean, like I said, even the next morning, he was such a happier kid. So I think it's going to be okay. And I wish you guys the best of luck with it. It's all going to be okay. And then the third question is about caffeine. So yes, backstory on caffeine. So when I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, I gave up caffeine just because it can really mess with your digestive system, GI system, all that stuff. So I wasn't really drinking coffee at all. I mean, maybe I'd have like a decaf every once in a while, but I wasn't drinking it like I was nowadays. And then I got pregnant and just kind of laid off the caffeine then. I'd have coffee every once in a while, but decaf, and I never went back to the caffeine. It was just kind of fine doing the decaf thing over the years. And even now, I don't have a ton of caffeine. I'm pretty good in the morning. I don't need that jolt to like get me going. I'm pretty good, you know what I mean? And I'll have caffeine every once in a while. If I go to a coffee shop and it's, caffeinated coffee or nothing, I'm like, all right, I'll just do the caffeine. It's, not the end of the world. But at home, I'm brewing decaf and having that. And if I go out, I'll order decaf if I have the option. But when I was drinking a ton of like cold brew and stuff that was just loaded with caffeine, I did feel like I was a lot more anxious and I was like sweating more and stuff like that. I definitely went through like a cold brew phase, and then I've since laid off because a cold brew has quite a bit of caffeine in it. So I would feel just kind of like anxious on it. And then also, I don't know if this is related or just like the timing with hormones and like all this stuff, but I feel like maybe having too much caffeine was causing me to like break out a little bit, like acne breakouts. It could be the hormone stuff, again, trying to figure it out. But I have read like a few things that maybe too much caffeine can affect skin stuff. So long story short, I just stick with the decaf. And I've got this question before too, is where do I find good decaf coffee? And it's been hard. It's been really hard. So Target has a brand called Kick-Ass Coffee, and they make a decaf, and Mal really likes it, and he's pretty picky. Starbucks has good decafs too. And then the Target Organic Archer Farms brand, they have some flavors that are organic, and sometimes I mix those with decaf, so it's like a half calf situation, but it's almost like a 2/3, 1/3. I just get like a little of the flavor in there, so it's kind of like a good compromise that I'm not getting a ton of caffeine, but I'm still getting like the flavored goodness. So that's my answer for that. Oh, and then also I'm a big fan of the decaf espresso shots over ice from Starbucks. That is delicious. Try that if you haven't tried it. I actually got it with toffee nut syrup this morning or this afternoon. Really good. And then the final question is about the Berkey. And so I got a ton of questions if the Berkey keeps the water cold. And it keeps it cold-ish. If you put it in there cold, it will kind of stay cold. But it's not plugged into the wall. It doesn't have like any sort of, you know, system that like cools it. So if you put it in there cold, it stays pretty cold. I mean, it's summer now and it will still come out kind of cold. But I mean, you know, we'll just add ice to it or something like that. But there's no cooling system in there, but it does do a pretty good job keeping it cold. So that's it for questions. I hope you guys enjoyed this session, and I apologize that the colors have been going like in and out. But if you have any questions, send them my way. I love doing these Instagram lives with you guys, and have a wonderful afternoon.